Hi class, this is Mr. Kosgard and welcome to Unit 3 where we'll be looking at the process of writing the analytic essay. Before we do that, I just want to make sure that we are all clear on what the analytic essay is. If you remember, back in Unit 1, you did write a sample analytic essay where you looked at Paul Bogard's essay. This was a sample from the SAT where they were asking you to analyze how Bogard builds an argument to persuade his audience, to analyze how he uses his methods to strengthen the logic and persuasiveness of his argument. Okay, again, you are explaining how Bogard builds his audience. So this is important to think about. This is not you explaining whether you agree with Bogard's claims. That would be an essay that would be seen more on the ACT, where you would sort of look at different authors' arguments and then form your own. Instead, you are looking at one text and breaking it down and explaining how it functions. So to write an analytic essay, you're being asked to do a few different things. To read closely for, first of all, to understand what is being said, so comprehending it on one level, but then on another level to analyze the literary devices, symbolism, foreshadowing, the style, the way in which it's written, how it's being communicated, kind of the voice of the author. After close reading, right, you're also being asked to organize your own argument and persuade the reader that your understanding of the author is accurate. So you're close reading, you're persuading, you're analyzing. So you're doing all of these things in an analytic essay. So I wanted to look at kind of an example. This is from Rowan State that does a nice job kind of comparing between summary, which you did in assignment 2.1, and analysis. So you're not just restating the argument or restating what the text says. That would be summary, and summary in an analytic essay would be fine in an introduction. Say if you're summarizing the plot of the story, sometimes your teachers might ask you to do that. Or at the end of an analytic essay, you might summarize your own points. But for the most part, you're analyzing or interpreting, and you're asking how and why, not what. So Robin Hood stole goods and money from the rich to give to the poor. Right? Well, yeah, that's the basic plot of Robin Hood. Most of us know that. That's showing me or the reader that you understand the plot of the story. But here comes some interpretation. This is, well, what's the significance, or why does that matter? How does that storyline tell us about the author's theme? Well, the use of a monarchy or kingdom setting in Robin Hood allowed the author to portray the abuses of power that often occur among the wealthiest members of a community. So he's using literary language here, the setting of Robin Hood as someone who is taking from the rich and giving to the poor, and it's telling us about the major theme that sometimes the wealthy can abuse their power, and so that is analysis, that's interpretation of the story. To look at the outline, you all should have access to all of these documents. The basic outline of an analytic essay. We're not going to focus too much on the first paragraph, but it should have a thesis, which would appear at the end of your introduction. And a thesis is probably the most important sentence in your essay because it should answer the prompt and it should set forth your entire argument. And then 3 body paragraphs. This is typical for a shorter essay in English class or on the SAT, where you need kind of 3 components of your body paragraph to support your thesis. You need a topic sentence, and I'll refer to this as a claim sentence. So a claim that supports the thesis. You need a bit of context, in other words, that this a little background kind of leading up to your evidence, setting it up, and then analysis. How does this prove your thesis, and how does it, what can you sort of, what's the why and how of this particular evidence that you're showing? There are 2 more body paragraphs that would support your thesis. So 2 other finer points that would support your argument, and then a conclusion that, and we'll talk more about conclusions, but in this unit you'll be kind of summarizing your own argument. So practicing those skills we developed there in Unit 2.1. So I just want to look at one more document. Most of you have read Lord of the Flies if you are now going to sophomore year. If you're going into 9th grade, this is a book to look for. This is an essay on Lord of the Flies, and I just want to look at kind of the thesis in one body paragraph to give you a sense of the argument that's being made. So the thesis, as you can see, comes at the end of the first body paragraph. The boy's evolving relationship with the conch illustrates Golding's theme that humans, when removed, typo there, from the pressures of civilized authority, will become evil. Okay, so this is not a summary of the plot, but it's looking more closely at the function of this symbol, the conch, which the boys use early on to keep order. Whenever the boys have the conch, their power or authority should be acknowledged. And so in this essay, the writer is going to show us that as the kind of symbolism or value of the conch changes, so does human nature as as the conch here becomes less significant. So in the beginning, the boys view the conch as an important symbol that unites them and gives them the power to deal with their difficult situation. The boys are stranded on an island. So in the beginning, signals kind of the symbolism of the conch will evolve, and it unites them and gives them power. Right? So that cues us back to civilized authority. And then there is good evidence, textual evidence. When the conch is first blown, it brings everyone together. Ralph found his breath, blew a series, a short blast. Piggy explained, "There's one." So people acknowledge, or the boys acknowledge early on, the power of that. The analysis, each comes for his own reason, some for curiosity, others for the prospect of rescue, and they all form the first assembly to thank the conch. So kind of further detail there. I'm not going to read through all this, but just again, the topic sentences. Gradually, conch becomes less important, signifying their turn to evil, and in the end, the conch loses significance to all but Piggy, and most turn into evil savages. And then kind of a summary of the overall argument in the final paragraph. Okay. So the last thing I'll just say is on the Roane site, please look at the analytic essay as opposed to other essays that you may encounter. And there are examples. So we'll be looking at the argumentative essay, which is like the ACT, where you are given a bunch of evidence, you are given others' views, and you take a position on an issue. Others' narrative is telling a story to explain a lesson, and then description is you describe something in a vivid way. Those may be other types of essays you may encounter. So I want to just look at those as a way to distinguish, or you should look at those as a way to distinguish them from the analytic essay, where again you are showing that you not only understand the original article, a story, a novel, a poem, but how and why the elements of that story, novel, poem, function. So I hope this has been helpful, and good luck in this unit.